When I say 9/11, what comes to mind? Planes, towers, New York City,
Terror.
But that wasn't the first 9/11 that changed the world. Let's go back to Santiago, Chile, September 11, 1973. Jets, bombs, and a palace under siege. A president is about to die, and this is the 9/11 world forgot about.
La historia es nuestra y la hacen los pueblos.
Socialist Salvador Allende became Chile's president. A historic day for Latin America. For the White House, it was a mistake.
The CIA-backed killing of the democratically elected socialist leader of Chile, Salvador Allende. 40,000 were killed or tortured under Pinochet. Boris Johnson's hero, Margaret Thatcher, believed Pinochet, though, should be rewarded for his...
Or the policy would be to make the Chilean economy scream.
The year was 1970, and Chile did something no country had ever done before. It elected a Marxist, Salvador Allende, through democratic means. No revolutions, no civil war, just ballots. Allende had run for the president 3 times before as well. He was no outsider, a doctor by training, a former health minister, and a respected senator. This time, his government, named Unidad Popular or the Popular Unity, was a collaboration between socialists, communists, radicals, and the Christian left. Together, they offered Chileans something extraordinary, a peaceful democratic path to socialism. Allende won with over 36.3% of votes in a 3-way race. It wasn't a landslide, but it was enough. Congress confirmed him president, and the Chilean road to socialism began. Allende's first target was economic independence. At the heart of it, copper. Chile's salary of the nation, but it wasn't Chile's profiting from it. American giants like Anaconda and Connecticut controlled the industry. In July 1971, with the unanimous support in the Congress, Allende nationalized the copper industry. He paid no compensation, citing decades of excessive profits. The move was celebrated across Chile as a reclaiming of dignity, but in Washington, alarm bells rang. Beyond copper, Allende's government nationalized steel, coal, banking, and telecommunications. The idea was simple. The commanding heights of the economy should serve the people, not foreign shareholders. But Allende's revolution didn't stop at copper and factories. It reached deep into the soil, into the countryside, where the inequality has festered for generations. Chile's vast agriculture estates were dominated by wealthy landlords, while millions of peasants live without land or rights. Allende's boosted a sweeping agrarian reform, seizing and redistributing over 6 million hectares of farmland. For the rural poor, it was nothing but a sort of a social earthquake. But redistribution wasn't just economic, it was also democratic. The government formed peasant councils, giving rural workers a voice in shaping the local development. A first in Chilean history, this transformation also extended to the Mapuche people, the Chile's largest indigenous community. In November 1970, the Allende's administration launched a scholarship program to bring Mapuche children into public education, while also returning their ancestral lands by 1972. Over 100,000 hectares had been restored to the indigenous families, not as a charity but as a reparative justice. And for the first time, the state acknowledged that Chile did not belong solely to the elite or the cities, but it belonged to all of its people. Allende's revolution wasn't just about land and industry, it was about the people. He doubled maternity leave from 6 to 12 weeks, opened daycare centers and women's health clinics, set up public laundry services to ease the domestic burden on working women. Chilean women, long sidelined from the policy, suddenly found themselves at the center of it. A school milk program fed half of the country's children. Public housing expanded, and health clinics were built in remote villages. And this was the socialism with a human face. And the numbers showed it was working. Within the first year, inflation fell from 36.1 to 22.1%, and the real wages rose by 22.3%, and unemployment also dropped to below 4%. It was just a glimpse of what democratic socialism could look like in Latin America. International solidarity followed. The Cuba supported the reforms and the Fidel Castro visited Chile in 1971. But even Castro warned Allende that revolutionary change with peaceful methods would invite enormous opposition.
But I hope that, but he just failed. That's his main problem. He should have kept Allende from getting in.
In the months after the Allende's 1970 victory, the US President Nixon held a meeting with his national security team. According to now a declassified CIA memo, Nixon gives clear orders: make the economy scream, 48 hours and no time to wait. His national security advisor went even further. He said that I don't see why we need to stand by and watch a country go communist due to irresponsibility of its own people. The US launched Track 1, a diplomatic and political strategy to block Allende from even taking the office. It involved influencing the Chilean Congress, where the president had to be confirmed. The CIA invested money into anti-Allende's party, encouraged backdoor deals, and tried to convince Congress to pick the second place candidate, George. But Allende had the momentum and a legal mandate. Then came a turning point: the assassination of General René Sanader, a military commander who opposed coups and defended the constitution. Although the CIA didn't pull the trigger, they had funded and armed groups involved in the kidnapping plot that led to his death. Sanader's killing shocked the country, but instead of derailing Allende, it strengthened public support for him. On October 24, 1970, the Chilean Congress confirmed Allende as a president. When Track 1 failed, the CIA moved to Track 2, a full-scale covert sabotage. This wasn't about diplomacy, but this was about the destabilization. Between 1970 and 1973, the US government spent over more than $8 billion funding opposition groups, business elites, and the media outlets to create a sense of collapse. One of the CIA's biggest investments was the newspaper El Mercurio, Chile's largest and most influential outlet. The CIA secretly gave it over $1.5 million to run a consistent anti-Allende campaign, spreading fear about communism, economic ruin, and Cuban influence. Headlines screamed chaos, while CIA funded journalists quietly and distorted the reality. Propaganda became news, and news became reality. Chile's economy was cornered. Inflation returned, shortage became common, and factories halted production due to the missing imports. And every crisis was used to fuel anger against the Allende's government. The US also pressured international banks to cut off loans. The World Bank and the IMF quietly turned their backs. Allende's peaceful road to socialism was being mined, every step destroyed. This wasn't just economic, it was psychological warfare. The goal wasn't just to crash the system, it was to make the people believe that the system had failed. Middle-class citizens, once open to Allende's message, now began fearing about food shortage and chaos. The elite pushed the idea that only the military could restore the order. Next came the economic war. In October 1972, Chile was paralyzed by the truckers' strike, financed in part by the CIA and the Chile's economic elite. Truck blocked highway, supplies vanished from the cities, and businesses shut down. It wasn't just a spontaneous protest, but it was an economic sabotage. Even spare parts for the trucks were imported by the CIA to keep the blockade alive. By 1973, Chile was tired. Every institution was under strain, and the opposition was radicalized. The groundwork for the coup had been laid brick by brick in Washington and the US Embassy in Santiago. On the morning of September 11, 1973, tanks rolled into Santiago, fighter jets bombed La Moneda Palace, and inside, President Salvador Allende made his final radio address to the people. A few hours later, Allende was found dead, reportedly by suicide, still wearing his presidential sash. What followed was not a transition, it was a bloodbath. General Augusto Pinochet seized power, backed by the military and the CIA. Over the next years, his regime would detain, torture, and kill thousands. Over 40,000 people were tortured, more than 3,000 were killed or disappeared, and all the political parties were banned. Chile had entered a long dark night, and the world barely blinked.